Something serious is going down with the Dallas Stars right now as we have a huge report regarding their future. As not only is the Pete DeBoer and Jake Ottinger situation getting more intense day by day, new reports indicate that Jason Robertson could likely be on his way out as well. We have to break down all the recent Dallas Stars reports and the implications on the future of the franchise as they enter a big win now mode with guys like Mikko Rantanen, Jamie Benn on his last legs, Tyler Seguin, and much more. We're going to break all that down for you on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into the video, quick reminder, hit that free button down below, guys. We got daily content on all your favorite NHL teams. And hey, 90% of you haven't hit that button. So we'd really appreciate if you did, if you want to stay up to date. Mark, Darius, there's a lot we got to get into on this front now. The Dallas Stars, they've been taking the NHL news world by storm. And no better example than this tweet here by Savannah Hugh Muller saying, hearing of some big changes coming for the Stars, going right in right away. Now, this is pretty vague, and there has been no real clarification since that, but speculation, of course, is running wild, and I think we got to start with Pete DeBoer, right? Of course, we're all familiar with the comments he made after, they got eliminated in the playoffs about Jake Ottinger and stuff like that, saying, yeah, we were in a 2-0 hole, didn't take that lightly. But don't blame it all on Jake, but reality is he lost 6 or 7 games, and like you just showed there, Dave Pagnotta weighing in as well, saying, look, per multiple sources, players were not pleased with how he handled several situations, told players voiced concerns during the exit interview. He's only got 1 year left. I mean, Darius, I think we'll start with you. Like, what are your thoughts on the Pete DeBoer situation? To me, at this point, when we hear stuff like major changes are coming, to me, I think the writing's on the wall. I genuinely think he's going to be gone, and it's going to be very soon.
Yeah, and I actually don't think any of this is personnel changes on the ice in terms of the team. We'll get to Jason Robertson in a bit, but I think it's Pete DeBoer. He hasn't been able to get the job done. He hasn't with other teams he's been on. The way that he handled this whole situation in obviously the elimination to the Edmonton Oilers was, in my eyes at least, awful. And by all accounts, with the exit interviews, the players are not very happy about it either. And if you guys can remember back to, I think it was 2019, the Dallas Stars and their owner came out and called out Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin and basically said they were playing like horse bleep. And then I think the next season they went on to the Stanley Cup final, right? So this has happened before. Those players didn't get traded. So I actually don't think there's going to be too many personnel changes. Of course, there's changes every offseason, but in terms of the big guys, I don't think there's going to be too many changes. But Mark, I'm curious for your thoughts on this too, because, I think it is Pete DeBoer that we're talking about at this point. He hasn't been able to get this team over the hump, and they're a really skilled team.
And I mean, the big thing is, listen, Pete DeBoer is an awesome coach. We've seen him. He holds a record for the most games, 7 wins. But with the players voicing frustration on how he just handled the situation, obviously they failed to beat the Edmonton Oilers once again. There is a world where we do see Pete DeBoer move on. He's going to get scooped up immediately. But maybe this just needs a new change of scenery, a new coach to step in, a new voice in the locker room. This is the team that made it to the Western Conference Finals, twice, but I don't know if they can get it done under Pete DeBoer. We've seen him fail twice doing this. I don't know, Josh, do you think a new coach coming in could change the entire scenery of this team?
I mean, it could. It always could. I mean, we see the new coach boost, especially if it's the right hire. It helps a lot of the time. I mean, no better example this year maybe than Jim Montgomery getting canned by the Bruins and going and taking St. Louis on an incredible run the rest of the way, right? So it can really change it if the coach matches well with the team that you have built. But again, like Pete DeBoer is a great coach. There have been some question marks about him, of course, again, in this Western Conference final, how he handled things, especially on the Jake Ottinger front. But again, if you hear multiple reports, if this is true, that players were not happy with Pete DeBoer, you can't risk having a locker room where the coach has just lost it. Not if you want to continue to compete for many years. Again, with Rantanen signed to that huge contract at $12 million per year, you have, again, here, this is a great example. You got Heiskanen for a long-term deal at 8.4. You got Lindell at $5 million, and the rest of your forwards there, you guys like Seguin still there at a big cap hit, Rope Hintz, Wyatt Johnson to that new extension. This is the window where you really got to go for it. So I genuinely think that a new coach could make a lot of sense for this team. Do they ride out Pete DeBoer's last year? I don't think you can even risk it. Every single year matters for this team, and I think they keep going, but I want to switch gears really quick. And there's one guy here that I haven't mentioned yet, and that is Jason Robertson. Of course, he is a restricted free agent after this upcoming season, and we have recent reports that he may be on his way out. We see this one here saying Robertson will likely expect a significant raise closer to what other top-line forwards like Hintz and Rantanen make, and if the Stars don't think they can or aren't willing to afford him at that price, they may be better off testing the trade market. And this isn't the only place we've heard this report. On Donnie and Dolly's show, for our Canucks show, they heard Jason Robertson's name out there. Jeff Merrick suggested the same thing. Guys, when it comes down to the forwards, it makes a lot of sense. Dallas has really put themselves in a bit of a stranglehold cap-wise, and it's not just because of the top-end talent. Some of their bad contracts are there as well, especially on defense with the likes, Matt Dumba and even like Lyubushkin to some extent. But right now with Robertson likely wanting a pretty hefty extension to next year, do you think a Jason Robertson trade could actually be possible? Mark, I'll throw it to you first, because this guy, like, if he is genuinely available on the market, you have to imagine Dallas will get an absolute haul back for him in terms of probably a lot of future draft picks.
I mean, it might be kind of a hot take, but looking at the forward group, I think there was room for Robertson to come in. But when you trade for Mikko Rantanen and coming in, taking that big of a cap hit, it does get kind of tough. I mean, you're going to see the salary raise. We're going to see it hit 100 million at some point soon, but bringing in Robertson, if you're adding all these faces in for 10, 11, 12 mil, we've seen the Toronto Maple Leafs out east, it doesn't seem to work. Yes, Dallas can get a lower cap hit due to the taxes and everything like that in the United States, but I could see a world where they do move on. They still need to bolster their defense. It was shown this year that having Cody Ceci on your top line right D does not work in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't know, Darius, do you see a world where they go out, move on from Robertson, which I'm not going to say is a good idea. I mean, he's a 40-goal scorer, but do you think they could use this to bring in assets maybe that they need at the current moment?
Definitely. I don't think the defense core on this team is good enough. And I think that showed against the Edmonton Oilers. I don't know if anyone was going to beat the Edmonton Oilers, and we'll see if the, Florida Panthers can even do that. But, I don't think their defense core is good enough. So you're going to have to reallocate some of that money. And I think it's going to be by way of, trading Jason Robertson here. And obviously, I don't think anyone's going to blame the Dallas Stars for picking up Mikko Rantanen. He's a premier player in the league, right? And he helped them in the playoffs, obviously win 2 of those rounds. I think he was absolutely unbelievable. But you're going to have to start rethinking what this team looks like. And we don't know what's going to happen with like Jamie Benn either. Obviously, he's not like one of the top players, I guess, on this team anymore, but that's going to be something that they have to think about. So, Jason Robertson, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because, again, you have Mikko Rantanen now who can carry the load in terms of scoring, and Jason Robertson is a premier scorer in the league too. You're going to get a lot for him probably in terms of, players who can immediately be plugged into the lineup that will be impact players or a player, and then probably some futures that you can use to flip to, help your defense. Because, again, you have the goaltender, and the fact that Pete DeBoer was blaming everything on the goaltender, I think it was ridiculous. As you can see here, I thought it was absolutely crazy that he did this and handled poorly. You have the goaltending. You have the forward group, even without Jason Robertson. I do believe that they are pretty deep. I don't think the defense is good enough. They're probably going to have to reallocate some of that money to the defense. And again, Jason Robertson might be that guy at this point.
There are some trade targets. There's even some free agency targets. I've heard the name of Aaron Ekblad floated out there. I mean, no links directly to Dallas, but again, you want a big, solid playoff-style right-hand defenseman who's a free agent to go with a lot of your left-handed star defensemen. Hey, what better guy than him? But yeah, right now, like you said, I think it would make some sense. But on the other hand, it's like, why would they get rid of Robo? He's been so good for them. He's so young, and he's 6'3" forward. I mean, like, he's the kind of guy that's very rare in the league. But I just want to touch on one final thing here. You mentioned the goaltending. And I've seen some people already throw out the name of Jake Ottinger to be tossed around to another team. And I just wanted to kind of talk with you guys about this just for a second each. Do you think there's any world where Ottinger goes? I think DeBoer is fired before anything happens with Jake Ottinger. I've seen the rumors about him getting traded. Mark, we'll go to you just real quick. Any thoughts on the Jake Ottinger trade rumors out there? Because to me, I think this is an absolute non-starter.
I mean, if they're going to move him, he does have a no movement clause kicking in at the start of next season, July 1st. So if they're going to move him, it's going to be before then. So he doesn't have a say on where he goes and where he doesn't want to go. But I don't think you can move on from this goaltender. We've seen how good he is. Yes, he went out and lost 6 to 7 games to the Edmonton Oilers or whatever Pete DeBoer said, but you have a goaltender that's an Olympic starter. You have someone that should be an Olympic starter at least. Hellebuck is a bit of a fraud, but that's a different story. Looking at his stats, he's been productive. We know what he can do. I don't know if you feel the same way, Darius, but I don't think moving on from Jake Ottinger makes this team better, and I think it sets him back quite a bit.
No, and I think sometimes in not only this sport, but in this league, common sense does not prevail. But when you look at this, common sense says, why would you ever trade this player? He's quite literally a franchise goaltender. So if anything's going to happen, it's going to be Pete DeBoer getting fired over this. But if we look at, the history of this team over the last couple of years, I think they're going to try and squash this the best that they can. But again, if they're not going to be able to do that, and a lot of the players are starting to turn, it's going to be Pete DeBoer that leaves first. You do not trade your franchise goaltender, and he didn't even do anything wrong. Yes, you would like a save, I'm sure, to start that game, but stuff like that happens. Dallas had no shot after that first goal went in. It was over. The Oilers had won that series. So I think it was more about what the Oilers were doing in that series and the fact that you're down 3-1 than it was Jake Ottinger in that moment. He is, one of the best goalies in the league. So do not trade him. Do not trade him, is what I will say. And hopefully they don't do that for, the Stars fans' sake.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. And listen, if you're a Stars fan, we would love to hear your thoughts on all this down below. Because no matter what we talk about, Ottinger, Robertson, DeBoer, something's going to change. Something has to change heading into next year. Look, I know it's tough to say that from a team that's making conference finals after conference finals, but there is that hump. There's an expectation, especially when you go all in like the Stars did. They're one of the deepest teams in the league. It's just a matter of seeing, can they do it consistently? But leave your thoughts on everything down below, because something's going to go down. But that'll do it for this episode of Hat Trick HQ. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, but most importantly, subscribe to the channel, because we got NHL content coming every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Mark and Darius. We'll catch you in the next one.